And then I had a young boy, probably 9 or 10. He had such a strong reaction to the character that he chose to actually go and seek help for his eating disorder at 10 years old.
Wow.
And I'm like, this is so much more than a television show.
Hey, what's up, y'all? Welcome to this week's episode of the Stay Human podcast. I am very, very excited right now because I have someone who, is an incredible, incredible actor who is doing cutting edge work in the world, making people feel stuff. And that is super important in this crazy time that we're living in, that we all have an opportunity to just be able to feel. You know, I gotta, before you even get into introducing her, I gotta make a confession. First of all, that I hadn't seen her television show, but I just got done watching episode 1. I mean, we're talking like 5 seasons, and I've seen episode 1, season 1. And so I was like just bawling, like sitting here in this room, like tissues, crying, blowing my nose, like blabbering, crying. And so you're going to get me here in this very emotional state.
Oh.
So before we go any further, I want to give a shout out to the great Gibson Guitars for sponsoring this show, as always. And our guest today is most well known for her portrayal of Kate Pearson on NBC's award-winning drama, This Is Us, as well as for her recent starring role in the hit faith-based film Breakthrough. After her performance at the 92nd Academy Awards, she signed with Universal Music Group Nashville, and she's currently working on her debut country album. Her recent memoir, This Is Me, debuted as a New York Times #1 bestseller. And People magazine named her 2017's Ones to Watch and 50 Most Beautiful. She just launched her wine company called Joyful Heart and hosts a new competition craft show called Meet Your Makers Showdown on Discovery Plus. So please welcome to the podcast, Chrissy Metz. Chrissy, how you doing?
I'm good. Thanks for that very nice intro. Thank you.
Isn't it neat to kind of just hear like all the stuff stacked up in a row that you've done? It's kind of like you just go about your life doing all these things, but when you hear somebody kind of repeat it back to you, how does it make you feel?
It's wild because I'm just, I'm a big girl from a small town who dreamt of things but never thought it would happen. And so when I hear someone else say the things that I've accomplished in, 6 years, I'm like, okay, I'm doing things. I'm trying, I'm doing things. So
it's pretty impressive to be, I was talking about this with someone the other day on the podcast, that the idea of this age that we're in now, that you can be a slashy, it's like actor / musician / winemaker / #1 bestseller author. Like, did you, when you were growing up as a kid, did you think did you set out to do this whole wide breadth of things, or did you just kind of fall into it as time went on?
It's interesting, / multi-hyphenate kind of thing. I'm like, somebody called me that once and I was like, what is that? But here's the thing. We all have always been many things. We've always been multiple things. It's just sometimes we don't have a platform to showcase them. Nobody's one thing. And so for me, I just always felt a little alone, whether it was growing up in my sibling dynamic, whether it was all my friends in school or the town I grew up in. I was like, I just feel different and I don't know why or how, and I can't always relate to them. And so I found a lot of peace and solace in music. And being creative and crafty. And I always thought I was going to go to school for art, but visual, medium of Prismacolor, watercolor, not necessarily acting or singing. But music was for me, not only my first love, but what really got me through really difficult times, specifically at church. Even when my family wouldn't go to church, I was always looking for something, and I was looking for peace. I was looking for understanding. I was looking for my direction, my path. And so I want to say I knew that I was more than one thing, but I didn't know how I was going to express all of those things.
Yeah.
Sure.
What was your sibling dynamic? You just mentioned that. What was the house like that you grew up in?
Yeah, I am now one of five. My older brother and sister and myself were from my mom's first marriage. And then my mom remarried, and then she had two younger daughters, which are, of course, my half sisters, but I never considered them half sisters.
Yeah.
Like, we were raised together. But I was sort of in the middle of like, I was like the entertaining diplomat of sorts. Like if somebody was upset or somebody was crying, I'm like, how do I fix it? How do I make them feel better? And then, of course, that in turns me sort of forgetting myself. And, while we, of course, choose our own journeys and our paths and everything that we get to learn and all of our lessons, I didn't realize it and haven't realized it until I was an adult that like I'm a people pleaser. And often people pleasers are very good at neglecting themselves. And so I don't blame them, of course, and I love them very much. And I'm so grateful for our relationships now, but it was tricky. And my stepfather, my mom remarried, and we did not, like, he meant well. And I talk about it in my book. He meant well, and he was raised in a very tough manner as well, but he was very hard on me. And I know now as an adult, it was because he saw potential and he cared about me. But at the time, I felt so nitpicked and like so berated and, physically, mentally, and emotionally abused. And it was really difficult when your mom remarries and you're going through puberty and you have a stepfather who you're like, he hates me. And it was really, really difficult for a long time. So, I mean, I have a well of emotion to pull from because of those experiences. And I'm so grateful that I have a chance to explore that on a TV show and people can relate to this particular character. So it wasn't for naught, but it was trying for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've had a similar upbringing in a house with, 5 kids and challenging, because I was also given up for adoption at birth. I was just watching, like I said, I watched the first episode, and I grew up as this brown kid in this, white parents, 3 white siblings, and then we also adopted another African-American son. So I grew up in this super mixed household. I have one sister who's a lesbian, one brother who's a police officer, and I often say we're like the all-American family. We've kind of got like one of everything in our house, But it was tough, and the thing that made it be challenging is that, when you're a kid, it's hard enough because you just feel different, period. Like every single kid goes through that.
Sure.
And in some houses, difference is discussed or is made space for. And, God bless my mom. My mom was always like, you be you, you be you. But there wasn't a lot of like emotional literacy, I guess, in our house. There wasn't space to talk or share feelings. Right. My father was an alcoholic, and my parents are both very stoic, like Midwestern. There's just like not a lot of like outward expression of feelings or love. And so I internalized all that. And as an artist today, I was thinking right before I came on here, watching the first episode, season 1, episode 1 of This Is Us. And I was like, it reminded me of one of my songs, which is that the lyric says, all the freaky people make the beauty of the world. And it really is true. Like, all of us are weirdos and have fucking problems. And a lot of people are able to mask them really well. But when you grow up kind of like, I basically like looking different, like I look different than my siblings, it's harder to mask that it's harder to blend in. And I'm wondering for you, and just watching your character on the show, it's like, there's nowhere for you to hide. Like you can't blend in. Was that your experience?
Oh, sure. Yeah. When you were just describing that, even though, our own experiences are our own, they're very similar. You can't hide. And sometimes that's very difficult. It's very trying because all you want to do is hide sometimes, and then when you want to be seen, you're not. So it's such this duality. You're like, what? I just want to be seen and heard, but like not for that. And not only because of that. So yeah, I mean, I was always probably the chubbiest of my siblings, and always knew that I would eat over my feelings and eat my feelings because that was comfort, that was soothing, and I'm from a German, Italian, Irish family. Like, what do you do when you're happy? You eat. What do you do when you're sad? You eat. Like so many cultures. I mean, there's probably every single culture and ethnicity that we do that. And so it really became something that I could control. There's so many things in my life I couldn't control. I could control what I put in my mouth. And then I also felt comfort in that. And so, it was a coping mechanism. And you said that your father was an alcoholic and, food issues, social media obsession, like it's all the same thing. We're all trying to fill a void. Yeah. And so, you can't really blend in. And I never felt like I could. And that's why I felt like so different from everybody else. And it wasn't just my physical body, but I mentally, emotionally, it was just a whole different thing. But all of our experiences are our realities. And so, as you were saying, everybody has their experience, and it's so true. Everything is relative, Yeah. So.
I want to talk a little bit about your character on the show. So could you describe for people who've never seen the show who Kate is and just a little bit about what the show is about?
Sure. So Kate Pearson is one of a triplet whose mother lost the third triplet in birth. And just so happened, a young man was given up and left at a fire station. And the the firefighter takes the baby to the hospital. And Jack Pearson, who is Kate's father, says, we're not leaving here without our third baby. So they adopt Randall Pearson, who is African-American. And so there are two Caucasian twins and then a third triplet who they call the big three. And so it's really this nostalgic traverse through time of the Pearson family and how everything they've done and what they experienced in their childhood is a ripple effect. And what their parents did in their childhood is a ripple effect in their lives. And Kate is the plus size twin of a very handsome working actor. And she always was sort of in the shadow and the glue that held the big three together, because Randall and Kevin are very alpha male. And much like me, sort of put herself in the back burner. And we come to discover that she has a lot of guilt and shame around her father's passing, which ultimately has nothing to do with her, but she had carried that physically, literally, through her, and now up into her adulthood. So it's really this beautiful, nostalgic, heartbreakingly bittersweet story of a family who's really a blueprint for life on life's terms. And how do we handle life on life's terms?
Yeah. And it's you're great. I mean, like I said, I only saw the first episode, but you are incredible. And as I was watching you on screen, the thing that came up for me first was, as a songwriter, it's my catharsis. My songs are my therapist. I sit down, I write, I bear what's in my heart. And so I guess I have two questions for you. Number one is, how has, during these 5 seasons of the show, like you processing who you are, come out in your role, and vice versa? How has it affected you? But also, did the makers of the show allow you to be able to put your own stamp on it, like your own heart? Like,
yeah. Well, yeah, they do allow us to put our own stamp on it. And we've cultivated these characters now. We're heading into our 6th and final season. Mm-hmm. And what's interesting is all the writers in the room either share their own stories or they seek out true stories from other people's perspectives, whether it's paternity issues, weight, race issues, social inequalities, anxiety, depression, addiction. There's so much that this show covers. And so I think that Dan Fogelman, who's the writer creator, I think that he's ultimately pulled from different aspects of our lives as people, because you can't, no matter what you're doing, I don't think any actor, you can never completely just be that character. You're always going to put your own thing onto it. And they are so kind to trust us to just bring what our life experiences are. And I think oddly enough and wonderfully enough, a lot of each one of us as people have brought in so many interesting layers into these characters because it's ultimately just who we are. So, but yeah, I mean, it's so cathartic because not only do I get to be incredibly vulnerable every single day, it allows me to have this catharsis because, you bring to set whatever's going on, whether it's a family issue or, an illness or whatever. You're driving to work and you can't separate the two. So you use it in your work and you hope that it transcends and transpires that like, oh, ultimately she's just feeling her feelings in a very honest and present, real way. Cause that's how I just approach everything in life. So yeah, I think that you have to use what you are and what you know and how you feel in that day. But it is so cathartic because I didn't realize how much confidence I would gain. Cause I show up to work and I'm like, I'm scared. Like the jig's going to be up. They're going to be like, you don't know how to act. What are you doing? The imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, Chrissy, every day you suit up and show up is like another deposit in your confidence bank. Yeah. You just got to just show up. And that has helped me tremendously as a woman, as a daughter, as a sister, as a partner. So yeah, it's all one. It's like all encompassing.
Yeah. I want to backtrack a little bit and just, as you were describing, when you're growing up and your household is challenging and you're one of 5 kids and you're trying to, like you said, you don't want to be the person who's standing out for the things you don't want to stand out for, but you want to be the person who's recognized for who you really are, the talents that you have and the gifts that you can bring other people. And when you're a teenager, how did that show up for you? What ways were you expressing yourself then? What were the challenges there?
Yeah, the challenges, I mean, it was the 90s and, when I was in high school and growing up in Gainesville, Florida in the South, everybody's without shoes in a bathing suit, in a pool or in a spring or in some body of water. Yes, we swam in country come to town retention ponds. Don't tell nobody. Ooh, my mom's like, don't ever tell anybody that, but it's real, Mom. It was hard because I always swam with a t-shirt on. I always and I wasn't even that chubby then, but of course I felt gargantuan. And you feel like that is all you are and that's all that people see. And so, and you're going through puberty, your body's changing, you're like not really understanding it. And then of course, boys or the opposite sex come into the picture and you're like, oh no. And so I was always sort of like the Cupid for my friends, like, oh, so-and-so like so-and-so. Oh, Justin, oh my God, I know Allison likes you. But ultimately, like I was just trying to find love and I just wanted to be loved and I just wanted to be understood. And so I was like, okay, let me just, as Gary Fisher said, take your broken heart and make it into art, so I would make little songs and record myself on like my little boom box and write poetry. And I remember I wanted to, we could pick someone prolific or somebody that we wanted to either meet or someone who was important in our lives for this big project. And I chose Bob Marley. And wouldn't you know, everybody was like, oh my God, you're on drugs. You smoke so much weed. I was like, what are you talking about? Y'all, he's a prophet. Like not everybody got it, and that's fine. Yeah. But like, that's why we get to learn things because when we educate people, the fear goes away. So anyway, I was just trying to see myself in other people and other people's stories and just wanted people to see my heart, but what ended up happening was I became a very angsty teenager, very angsty, very misunderstood, very bratty.
Just give me a picture. Like what kind of gear were you rocking?
Wow. Okay. And that's another thing. We didn't have much money, right? Yeah. So like I talk about it in my book. I'm not kidding, y'all. This is so embarrassing. Well, you do what you got to do. So middle school, Keds were super popular. Sam and Libby were like ballet flats, and then Keds. But my mom only could afford the Pick and Save Bobo kind. But they had different bottoms.
Yeah.
So I would be afraid to go in the sand and step on the sand because people would know I wasn't wearing Keds.
Oh, wow.
I know. Trauma. And so then my friends, when they would have their old Keds, I would glue the Keds label on the back of the Pick and Save. And, these things like impact you. I'm talking about it now as a 41-year-old woman. And so, I feel like I had a little swagger. But I also, that was sort of like the grunge era. Yeah. Wet Seal was very popular. I did not fit into anything but the necklaces. So it was kind of a interesting time because like those big Janko oversized jeans were popular.
Yes.
They ain't my size. So I had to wear a lot of like women's clothing or even I wore a lot of dudes like Lacoste, not Lacoste, like the Bobo Lacoste, collared shirts and long shorts and
the low cost.
The low cost, correct. So, it was like ever changing. But being a kid is so hard. I can't imagine how hard it is now. But then going through all of that and, having sort of a financial deficit and not being a straight size and not finding clothes because they didn't have no cute clothes for girls back then. It was difficult. And of course, I think you internalize all of that. And, I would just get attitude. Like I also was a class clown. So like, I knew if I wasn't getting attention at home, I could get it through school and through my friends and who I was obviously seeking validation and wanted to just make people happy and make them laugh and entertain them. And so, and it was so wonderful because Dean Metters, she's my favorite person. She understood where I was going, like, and what I was going through. And so when I would get in trouble, she would just be like, come and sit in my office and let's talk. And that's all I wanted. All I wanted was to be listened to be
somebody
heard.
To listen to, yeah.
Feel important. And so, and I know obviously now our parents are doing the best they can and everybody's doing their best they can with what they have. And if they knew better, they do better. So, I look back and now and people are like, Chrissy, you were a bee. I'm like, because I know how massive my heart was.
Yeah.
I just couldn't express myself. It was too scary. So,
Did you find acting and music in school, in high school, or did that come later for you? Or?
Well, in middle school, all the cool kids, all the cool rich kids were playing instruments in band. And my mom's like, we're not renting an instrument and we can't afford one. And of course, the only thing left was the baritone, which is a mini tuba. I don't need to be carrying no big instrument. I was like, no, I'm not doing it. This is not cute. So I happened to join choir. I was like, choir's free. The voice is free. So I had I sort of started to find myself in a choir where I could feel safe and one of many, but also find my voice. And it was sort of like the beginning for me of a real love for music and an understanding. And so acting didn't even come about. I was teaching preschool for years after I graduated high school. And I was like, I'll just be a young, early childhood educator. But I really wanted to be a singer and to write music. But I was like, how in the world am I, how's that going to happen? And then my younger sister, she said, Chrissy, oh my God, there's this open call at the Holiday Inn off Archer Road. Can you take Jenny and I, who was her best friend at the time? I was like, sure. So we go and I'm like, what is this nonsense? Bobo radio. What is this? And she's like, no, let's just stay. Can you fill out the form for me? So I'm filling out the form. A woman is sitting across from me and she has this weird hat on. And I'm like, what is going on? She said, oh my God, I taught at your high school. And I was like, no, you did not know who you are. What are you talking about? She said, what are you doing here? Aren't you here for a reason? I think you should audition. I'm like, what? I teach preschool and I'm afraid of my own damn shadow. And don't tell, I'm like, okay, thanks. And in my heart, I was like, yes, this is what I want to do. I want to say. And it was so wild because I turned around and she was gone. And I don't know now if it was a guardian angel, if it was myself outside of myself encouraging, all in one, who knows? Yeah. Anyhow, I ended up, my sister auditioned, and she was the manager at the time who was running the call. She was like, so what do you do? And I'm like, nothing at all. Like, don't look at me, nothing. And my sister's like, you should sing for her. And I'm like, oh my God. So I ended up singing a little, and the next day she called us, and she's like, I want to like represent you. Can you join classes? And I was like, what is this scam? But it turned out we end up just preparing for this really cool showcase in LA. And so for about a year and a half, we were just studying. And then we came out to LA, did a showcase. I got an agent and moved to LA in 2004.
Oh.
Yeah. But then, hold on.
All right.
Then I lived here for like probably about a year. And I was taking every kid, on auditions and working for my manager. And then she said, oh, your agent needs an assistant. And I was like, do what? What if she gets to know me and hates me, drops me, and I have to move back to Florida? I'm like, no. And she's like, you're going to figure it out. So that year turned into 9 years, and I became a talent agent for 9 years. So, yes. Our journeys aren't always linear. And I'm so grateful I had that experience because I learned so much. But it was difficult. And I ate my weight in Sprinkles cupcakes. I'm not even kidding. I don't want to see one of those things ever again. I took a 9-year detour.
What did you learn from being an agent that, eventually landed you what you're doing now?
I think what I realized is nothing is personal. Someone comes to an agent with a project and says, oh, we're trying to cast this commercial, this TV show, this movie. The writers, the creators have a person in mind. They have, it's not that you're not good enough. It's not that you're not talented. It's not that you won't find the right project. It has to just be your project. And 9 years of, I've gone on 20 auditions in my whole life, probably, maybe. And, so we had clients who were getting 20 auditions a week. So I was just like, wow, I've really got to commit to the craft. When I would get so frustrated when I call a client, I'm saying, we just pitched you for this audition and we're so excited. And they're like, oh, I'm out of town. Oh, you know what? I'm going to pass on that, And I get it. You have to trust your convictions, but you don't realize how hard people are working behind the scenes to just get you the interview, the audition, the appointment. So I really understood that, it's not in my time. It's not in my ego's time, that you have to put the work in. As Devon Franklin, who's a great friend and a producer, always says, you have to carry a crown before you can wear one. And that's really what it felt like. Like I was learning, I was like a journeyman in the acting world. And, I didn't go to NYU or, Juilliard, but like I got a firsthand look at how this business is truly run and driving forces
how
and
it worked.
How it worked and behind the desk. And like, it was, priceless. So it really helped me to also know that you can't be in it for the fame and fortune. It's too hard. It's too hard.
Yeah.
So I always like to ask anybody, what are you doing it for? What is your why? Like, why are you doing it? So lots. I learned a lot.
Yeah. Before This Is Us, did you have other roles that you had, or did it just come pretty quickly and after the 9 years?
Oh, no. I was living in LA for 12 years when This Is Us happened. And I had a small little co-star on a show called All of Us, ironically, and then a little small co-star on Entourage. I think it was the second season, a scene with James Cameron. No big deal. Almost peed myself. And then I had about a 5-episode arc on the 4th season of American Horror Story. So not much.
Yeah.
So I'd never tested for a network television show. And I never, it's like you just sort of get your feet wet. So no, I didn't have a ton of TV film experience.
Yeah. To land a role like the one that you have with Kate is, to me, like I think of it, it's like would be just such a great thing because here you are in this show that's doing all the things that you've grown up with and felt inside of you. And like, now I get a chance to like, not only heal me, but like have impact. And how does that come back to you? Do people write to you? Do you see people on the street? How does your audience and fans of the show? I mean, it's a different thing when, someone just goes on stage and people scream and go, "Oh, they're so cute," or "Oh, I love their ass," or what, like, but your show is so heartfelt that there must be people who just come to you and just be like, "You saved my life," or tell me about that.
I mean, even just hearing you say that makes me very emotional because I don't ever take it for granted. Like ever, ever, ever. I have friends who are some of the most talented people and they're sitting on their couch watching incredible performances, but it's not them. And I'm like, oh, it was written in the stars because it's not about me. It was the right thing for me to, portray. And then when you hear people, I mean, it can be as simple as, and what you don't know yet because you haven't seen all the episodes, is that Kate she's a huge football Steelers fan, and she watches football with her father's urn, with his ashes. And I'm like, this is far-fetched, until somebody comes up to me and says, oh my gosh, I watched football with my dad's ashes. And I'm like, what? And that's just like the tip of the iceberg. I mean, I've had women who, very, very fit, size, whatever, 0-2, whatever, come up to me and say, you don't understand how much I appreciate, you don't understand what's going through my mind and my mental obsession about food and weight and body image issues. And I'm like, you look at someone and you think, we have nothing in common. And you have everything in common. And it just manifests differently for different people. And then I had a young boy, probably 9 or 10, whose mom saw me on the airplane and she's like, oh my gosh, he loves you. If he writes you a note, would you mind if I give it to you? I'm like, oh my, no, of course not. And the lady sitting next to me was like, who are you? And I was like, I'm an actor on a TV show. And she sent me a note with his note, and it said, they were sitting, a couple rows back, and it said that he had such a strong reaction to the character that he chose to actually go and seek help for his eating disorder at 10 years old.
Wow.
And I'm like, this is so much more than a television show. Like, this is healing. This is hope. This is inspiration. This is relatability on the biggest and deepest levels. And I mean, from anything you can imagine. And every time I talk to someone, I mean, I cry in bathrooms with strangers. They're like, oh my God, that's Kate. That's my friend. I see her every Tuesday. She comes to my house. It's hard to explain. It's hard to express what it means to all of us and to be a person that someone can relate to. Because that's all I wanted growing up, know? So yeah. You got me crying up in here.
Well, me too. You're not the only one.
Oh boy.
Have you guys shot the 6th season yet?
We are in the middle of it. We're on episode 11 right now.
Okay. How much of a family have you guys become after this? I mean, I can imagine you guys are processing some deep, deep shit every week, and it's got to bring you close. So how much have you guys become a family? And then how does it feel knowing that like you're going to button this whole thing up?
It's hard, this cast is some of the most special human beings I've ever met. Some of the most talented human beings to exist. And the trust and the vulnerability is so deep that and that's not, I mean, yes, it was instant, but it's also cultivated over, I think we'll be at 117 episodes by the time we're finished with this season. Wow. And we're like family. I mean, we're there for each other. We've all, gone through, breakups and illness and death and like in real life. And we're just incredible people. And it's hard because we're processing the end while we're going through some really hard stuff in the show. And I'm just trying to stay present and not fall apart all the time, but also just relish in the fact that this is lightning in a bottle, and not to future trip and obsess about it being gone, but just be present. So it's tricky. It's really tricky.
Yeah. I want to talk about your book. You know, I've always thought like there's a book in me somewhere, you know, and I'm a storyteller, and there's a, you know, I write my stories and my songs, and I make films and stuff. But there's something that's, you know, if you're not a writer, and I'm not really even a reader, like I read 1 or 2 books a year, you know, and so that seems like very intimidating to me. How was it for you when
very intimidating, you know? And here's the thing, everybody has a story to tell, you know, and everybody has a story that's going to help other people. And for me, I was like, I don't have anything to say. And I was like, Chrissy, you just said that everybody has a story to tell. What are you talking about? And I'm like, yeah, but like, who am I? And like, the only way that I sort of agreed to it was like, how do I express and impart the life lessons that I have learned so far? How do I impart that upon people through a book, through chapters? And so really every chapter is sort of a lesson, whether it's about forgiveness with my stepfather, or about unrequited love from a boy that never claimed me in public, but we had like a private, you know, secret relationship, or meeting Oprah and going to have lunch at her house. And the first thing she said to me, and this is in the book, but the first thing I said, oh my goodness, your house is so beautiful. She goes, I know, right? And how many times I love to deflect every kind of compliment every single dang on time. Somebody could say, I like your dress. I'm like, oh, I got it on sale. Oh, you know, this whole thing, just say thank you, you know? But also she taught me that she worked her behind off to have that house. And not only was she proud of it, but it also is beautiful. And it's okay to sit in your seat of power and say, oh yeah, thank you. And it empowered me. And then I can impart that on other people. So everything is a lesson. And so I always try to separate the ego for everything I do, because it has gotten in the way, and it gets in the way, whether it's, you know, an argument with your partner or somebody at the grocery store, whatever. Something so trivial. It was very intimidating. Kevin O'Leary was my ghostwriter, and it was so wonderful because I wrote a letter, and I talk about it in the book. I wrote a letter to the executives at NBC after I tested for the role, because it was between me and another girl. And I said, whoever you decide to choose, oh my God, I'm going to cry again. Sorry, I'm very emotional today. I'm very raw. I'm always raw. I said, whoever you decide to choose is going to be the right person, but I want you to know that this is why I think I could really be Kate. And so it was really beautiful, because without knowing, Kevin wrote me a letter and said, these are all the reasons why I know I could be a great ghostwriter for you. And I was like, oh, like it really just touched my heart, because it's not easy for us to be vulnerable or to ask for something that we really want. So anyway, it was really cool because I really wanted it to be in my own voice. And so I would literally just, like we're talking, just tell him stories. He'd dictate them, and then I would read them. And I'm like, oh, that doesn't really sound like me. I want to rework this. And I have to say, it sounds intimidating, but like anything in life, one word, one page, one chapter at a time.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I'm just hearing what you said, and especially that part that you said about Oprah, about like just embracing like, yeah, I built this beautiful house, and it, you know, as a matter of fact, it really is really beautiful, you know?
Yeah.
And at the same time, we live in this society that through social media is constantly berating people, bombarding people. And, you know, you talked about that as being part of your life, where whether, you know, your stepdad was that, or just the fact is you felt that as a kid growing up. How do you handle it now when there's people who would write shit about you on social media or in the press, or like, how do you like not run? I mean, maybe you do run for, I don't know, but how do you like take it in and let it go? You know, what's your process for dealing with that? And then the second part of this question is, as an actor who's constantly being scrutinized in a healthy way, like on set, like try this again, maybe you should do it this way. Like, was there ever a point where you're like, God damn it, I fucking nailed that. Like, you know, like.
Yes. Yeah. Well, here's the thing. I was just talking to Jamie Sicily, who is the writer director of an independent film that's going to Berlin tomorrow. I'm so excited. And it's a true story of his life, and he's blood, sweat, and tears. But I said, he was like, wow, this press thing is so strange. How do you navigate it? And I said, you know, and obviously people who are kind and people who aren't, it's sort of a two-parter. Here's the thing. Nothing is personal. How somebody feels about you is not the truth. It's their perception of their reality. How you see a tree is not the way I see a tree. We haven't lived the same life. And so what I try to do is not deflect a compliment. And I can say thank you, but I don't attach to the negative or the positive. Because it's merely a perception. And while the positive is helpful and nice, if I don't attach to the negative, I can't attach to the positive. But at the same time, I understand that people who are picking people apart, who are trolling people, like they're not happy, like they're so miserable. And Brene Brown, I don't know if you heard this, but she always talks about, you know, people talking smack from the cheap seats. Like until you're in the ring with blood, sweat, and tears and dirt in your face and your eyes, don't come and tell me what I'm doing is not good, is not great, is not exciting, because you've never been here. And so I turn that around and I'm like, wow, they must be so miserable, must be so hurting. Because if you truly love yourself, there's no way you can be nitpicking and mean and hateful and berating people. You just can't. Like, you cannot do it. So I try to have patience and I try to have perspective. And what I try to do is not engage in the negative. And I will say, you know, sometimes I engage people and say, I don't know if you understand what's happening, or I don't think you understand the other perspective. And I really try to engage them because I think, like I was an angsty teenager, mad at the world, needed to just be heard, needed to feel important. And so I just try. And there's some things and some people that I just don't listen to. But the caveat for me is, if it stings, if it hurts, whatever they say, why does it hurt? Like, if they're mostly all people talk about is my weight, because that's all they can sort of pick apart. And that's fine. And people can have their opinion. But I'm like, oh, that's all you can say. And that's all that you're trying to, you know, do I want to be thinner is for any particular reason. If it stings or it hurts me, maybe there's some truth to it, you know. Or I always have to sort of be introspective and say, well, why does it hurt my feelings? Is it because I just want somebody to love me and like me and I want to make people happy? Or because I'm uncomfortable with making other people uncomfortable? So I always try to really think about it, but at the same time, sort of have a barrier and protect yourself. Because you have to, because you just can't. Again, it's their perception. So.
And as an actor, is it easy for you to take on board what other people are, how they're critiquing the ongoing process? Or
again, it definitely, you know, as a people pleaser, it was really difficult in the beginning. I'm like, oh my God, I'm the worst. I'm going to get fired. Everybody hates me. And I'm like, it took me a minute, but I realized that this is a collaborative art. You know, someone brings the paintbrush, someone brings the paint, someone brings the canvas, and then we make a beautiful portrait together. But like, if someone says, oh, you know, can you get that other brush? Oh, actually, I want blue. I don't want the red paint. It doesn't mean that the blue paint wasn't beautiful. It's that the red might look better here, or the red probably fits better here. And we probably need a flat brush and not a, you know. So I just realized, like, oh, this is so much bigger than me. And I'm one of many, and I get to make a beautiful portrait, and we can try different things out. And that's what's cool about art, is it's never finished. It's just abandoned. So we'll see what happens. So I just started not taking it personally. And I was like, oh, you know what? Maybe I can try that. Oh yeah. And then I noticed that when I got an attitude, it was because I was feeling insecure, or like I got sad. I was like feeling insecure, like, well, maybe I can't do that. What if I disappoint them?
Yeah.
We don't want just to be loved, liked, validated. That's why we buy the big house and the car, because we want to be respected, because we want to be loved. So everything comes back to love, as you know. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely been a journey and a process, but I'm so grateful I've been going through it.
Yeah. You know, I think about that a lot as I just, go through life. It's really a metaphor, the artwork that I do and the collaborations that I do, which are many and vast in their scope, and there's always a landing place that I'm trying to get at. And sometimes it's super clear, like, right now we're building some new hotel rooms, and we're building a music venue here. And we're like, I have this idea in my head that I want the music venue to look and feel a certain way. But as I'm going through the process with my wife and with the designer, with the builders, and with like the local craftspeople that we're working with, it's like, it's coming out different, but somehow better than what my narrow vision of it was at the start. And it's like, you got to have like a faith that you're going to sort of land there. And you've chosen these people to work with and surrounded yourself with these people based on all the experiences that you've ever had in your life before. And here you are for whatever reason, and you're trying to land at a certain place. When you think about the next art that you want to do, as you wrap up This Is Us, where do you see that you want to land? What's your next vision?
Well, I'm really gung-ho about finishing my first album. I have a couple singles out, and any kind of art is or building, hotel room, or buying a particular trash can, whatever it is, like, it really is sort of a magical thing of two minds or three minds or however many people, kind of come together, and you kind of take it for granted. But things always happen, like you said, better than you could have imagined. And I love that. So for me, I mean, I want to continue making music and writing music. I feel like I have not even scratched the surface as a songwriter and as a singer. And I really want to feel like, okay, I've at least made an album, and whatever that means, because people are putting singles out and it doesn't matter. But I'd love to have a story of songs. And so many of my songs and songs that I've co-written with incredible writers here in LA or in Nashville is really sort of a musical story of the lessons that I've learned in my life, whether it's heartbreak or, I have a song called Broken Hearts Break Things about my stepfather who, hurt people, right? Like, that's what they always say. And it's just, I want to continue to impact people and hopefully help them to feel less alone in any of the art that I do. I'd like to produce. I'd love to do a musical on Broadway. I'd love to find IP and, intellectual property and tell other people's stories and help them, to bring that to screen. Because I think it's just, people need to see themselves. I mean, even with Dan writing Kate as a character, I see so many women now and people who are not straight sizes, who are just like average size people or plus size people, whatever you want to call them, fat, plus size, whatever you feel comfortable calling them. But it's like, it makes an impact. It makes a change. And I would like to continue to do that. And fingers crossed, by the grace of God, that will continue to happen. Joyful Heart Wine. Yeah.
First of all, I love the name.
Thanks.
When I think of, like, I'm not a wine, like, people go,
sure,
what's your favorite wine? And I go, tequila.
Right.
I love that name because when I think of wine, I think of it not as something that you drink. I think of it as something that I share and enjoy with the company of other people. It's like, I don't even know, like, is it like, I don't know the names of the wines. I don't know. It's like, if there's one that's red and there's one that's somehow lighter, I drink them both. And, but we have this experience and we have this shared conversation and this dialogue, and it goes places that it wouldn't without like that relaxation that takes place. Tell me about, Joyful Heart. Why, what's the why behind it?
Like you were saying, like, it's not just about the wine or drink or beverage, it's about the experience. And as I said, in families, you get together and, you have friends that become family, especially living in LA. All my family's back in Florida. Like, we always try to get together, and somebody will bring a bottle of wine, or somebody will bring like their favorite drink or a dish. And it really is like, it's not only an experience, it's a memory. And for me, wine was always like, I don't get it. It's fancy. It's pretentious. I don't get it, but I like it. And I want to like, and there's some wines, of course, just like with any kind of drink, you're like, I don't love it. But I was like, if you could root it in joy and faith and love and community and shared experiences and memories, like what is, like you're giving more than just a bottle of wine. To someone, just exactly how you explained. And so it was like a no-brainer. And not only is it absolutely delicious, it's like affordable. I think sometimes people feel intimidated and it feels like, I was like, I need to have something that is delicious and affordable, but also has a message. Everything I do, I want there to be a message involved. And so Joyful Heart, I always try to live from a joyful heart. I always, for me, I feel like gratitude is my attitude, but no, seriously, I joke around, but I really believe that you cannot keep anything you don't give away. So whether it's love, joy, faith, community, it comes back to you, which is like, and the more grateful you are, the more you receive. It's like, what? Could you imagine if we all did that? So anyway, I was like, literally like staying with the message in a bottle. That's Joyful Heart, like it's so much more than a beautiful bottle of wine. And Nicole Walsh is our amazing winemaker I'm talking about like 25 years of experience, like what, and she knows things I didn't even know existed. And so I'm just so grateful that you can get behind a product that you actually like, like that. Not everybody can say that. And also we donate from every bottle, proceeds go to the World Central Kitchen, which is, food and wine. And, not only do they go hand in hand, but like it literally is one of these organizations that they use the power of food to nourish communities, So anyhow, it's just something that's really important and really fun and exciting and communal. So.
Well, congratulations on
it. Thank you.
I feel like I really got to meet somebody super cool today.
Thank you.
Thanks for sharing this conversation. I feel like I could talk for like 4 more hours with you.
I know. Well, I've been going to Bali, so maybe I have to come to your hotel.
You got to come out here. Yeah.
How far is the journey? Well, it's like what, noon or 12:30?
Right here. So it's 12:30 p.m. here for me. What time is it for you?
It is 8:30 p.m.
Okay, in LA. Yeah. So we're in the future. I can tell you the future is freaking awesome.
Yay!
And I want to just wrap up by asking the question that I ask everybody who comes on the podcast, which is, what does it mean to you, Chrissy, to be human? And how do you hold on to that which makes you human? How do you stay human?
I think that human means you are ever evolving, growing, changing, learning, thriving, failing. It's imperfect. It's chaos. It's beauty. It's everything. And I think you hold on to it by surrendering, as wild as that sounds. And it's not easy, but it's worth it, and it's why we're here. It's why we're here on this, I believe, plane of existence. So to learn, evolve, change, grow with each other, and to continue to do it every day, and know that you're not going to get it right. And some days you will. And it's okay either way.
Yeah.
And also that you're purposeful. I think being human means you're purposeful. Like the miracle that had to occur in order for a life to come into existence is, my mind it's like Enter the Wormhole, that show. I can't process it. And even if you do nothing, you've done more than enough. Just by being here and being purposeful is more than enough. You don't have to accomplish anything. So
yeah. Chrissy, thank you so much. I can't wait. I texted my wife after I watched the first episode. I hadn't even finished it. And I was like, oh my God, this is so good. We are kicking that other show that we've been watching for three seasons, of dragging on. We're kicking that one off. We're jumping over to this one. And I hope folks who are listening, go and watch it. Go check out This Is Us. And check out This Is Me after you get a taste of who Chrissy is and who Kate Pearson are on the show. Go check out her book. And then to wrap it up, go get some Joyful Heart wine.
You know what? You can go to joyfulheartwine.com.
That sounds like a perfect evening to me, right?
Get your little book, get your little wine, get your little tea, get your little remote, honey. Call it a night. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
But seriously, thanks for putting stuff into the world. I mean, with all the media, with all the offerings that we have that people can get at the touch of their screen, thank you for putting stuff into the world that has such heart and such integrity and such opportunity for people to see the sides of themselves that are that shadow side that's really the most important, that doesn't get to see the light. So thank you for doing that. And thank you for being on the Stay Human podcast. Thank you, Gibson Guitars, for sponsoring the show. And Chrissy, I'll give you the final word here.
I just want to say thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Peace.